guys, it's your girl Jay Scott, and I know I have been gone for a minute, but I am back. But if you are new, make sure that you like, comment, subscribe so that you can get a notification every time I drop a new video. Well, I've been reading your comments, but your girl has been a little busy. I know it's been a month since I uploaded, but I wanted to make sure that I answered some of you guys' questions. And some of those questions was, how do I move with the family? How's the school system? Things that I do not know. So I thought, why not get my brother, Dr. Asad? He moved here with his lovely wife, Adrian, and their two beautiful kids. And so help me welcome Dr. Asad. Dr. Asad, welcome to my channel.
Thank you so much, Sister J, man. It's absolute pleasure. It's an absolute pleasure being here.
Awesome. So, people have been like, Jay, how's the school system there? I want to move with my family. First, I want to ask you, why did you and your family pick South Africa? Why here?
Well, it may seem like a cliche or cliche-ish, but we just fell in love with Josie when we visited in 2019. We had been traveling to different places, taking the kids, trying to expose them to different cultures, different countries. But this was the first place that we visited that we said we could actually live here. And my wife has been wanting to kind of live outside of the U.S. since we first got married, but I was like, I ain't never leaving New Orleans. I'm from New Orleans. Why would I leave? They ain't got no crawfish over there, all that type of stuff. So
no crawfish.
So we came in 2019, and I was like, oh no, I could do this. Yeah, I like this. So that was it. We started making plans and decisions to see how we could actually live abroad. And it took us some time from 2019 to 2022, right? So some people jump in, they're able to do it overnight. But we were truly invested where we were, homeowners and business owners and all of this stuff. And we wanted to come on a proper visa and to be able to stay here long term and stuff like that. So it took us some time, but we got it done.
Well, how did it feel to move in an unknown territory as a family once you picked your place?
Well, so what I advise anyone to do is that if they're interested in coming to any country, but if you're interested in coming to South Africa and living, visit a couple of times. So we came in 2019, 2020, COVID happened. 2021, we may have visited 3 times or so, and then 2022, we visited a couple of times. So it did not feel unfamiliar, right? It was definitely new, but not unfamiliar. And specifically in December 2021, we stayed about a month, and we kind of purposely tried not to have a touristy experience. We wanted to have an everyday experience. So we went to Checkers, we went to Pick and Pay, just like the everyday stuff. It felt very familiar. And because Johannesburg in South Africa is very industrialized, very modernized, it feels more so like you moved to another American city as opposed to across the world, Yeah. So.
Okay. So what are some of the sacrifices that you guys had to make in order to make this big move, or I would say this big life change?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is like not being close to family and friends, like back home.
I understand
Yeah, so it is a trade-off. There is this feeling of relief when I'm in South Africa, that I've spoken with so many African American men in particular, right, who have said, "Hey, man, when I'm in the NSA, I feel free, or I feel I don't have to worry about this. I'm not, that out-group homogeneity." And when they get back on the plane, headed back to the U.S., one brother described it like putting on a weight vest, right? So there's a feeling of liberation and freedom and agency here that we don't experience in the U.S. but conversely, uh, there's the family ties, mom and dad, sister. I'm very close to my parents. Um, so losing out on, I don't have many friends, like most of my friends, they live, so I have friends that I've known 25, 30 years, and they all live across the United States. So it's not like we see each other every day. Anyway, we're more text message keeping up with each other. So that wasn't like a big deal. Like, oh, I'm gonna miss my friends. I don't see them regularly anyway, and I'm still able to keep up with them via text message. But my mom and my dad and my sister, I mean, I would pick my children up after school and go by my mom's house and hang out. So that's the trade-off. And if I can get them over here, then it'll be a win-win, but I can't convince them.
Yeah, I was about to say, listen, people always like, when you coming home? And it's like, no, but when you coming here,
Right,
I want you to feel how I feel.
right, exactly,
They
exactly.
don't get that. They don't get that.
No, my parents are older, in the 80s, so like flying long distances,
Yeah.
even though they could if they wanted, if they really, really wanted to,
And
especially
they
my
make that
dad.
trip to Jamaica, huh?
Huh?
I said people always like, oh, it's too far, but they'll make the trip to the Caribbean, to Jamaica,
Right,
to
right.
anywhere.
Well, I got real naturally born in people. I think my daddy only left the country to go to war. My mama has never left the country. She's only flown like twice. These like, you know, they like me. Why should I ever leave New Orleans? Go where for what? So
But New Orleans don't feel like, it don't feel like it's part of the US. And that's me personally. I
yeah,
always feel like New Orleans is its own thing, its own
yeah,
country. We are part of it, but it's just
right.
like
It's a
the
different place.
feeling, the people, the food, you just like it's a whole nother experience.
Right. And I'm gonna tell you really what it is for Black Americans in New Orleans. It is the bastion of like protection of being a super majority African American city.
Mm.
So you're living in the city, and you don't. Growing up, police brutality and all that type of stuff that really didn't concern. We always had Black police chiefs and Black police officers and stuff. But when you leave right outside and go into the suburbs, you know that there's a difference. So there's like this little oasis of Black, and then I would describe New Orleans as an oasis because it's full of violence and all that type of stuff. But it's this oasis or this protection from like the overall white supremacy and stuff that you feel, right? I used to tell people like I could go weeks without having to interact with anybody outside of my culture. Not that that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's just where we live. It's just where we were. So I think that's why a lot of New Orleanians don't want to leave. Katrina made a lot of them leave, and they went to Houston and they went to Atlanta and said, "Oh, this is what a real city is like. This is what it's supposed to be."
Yeah, my
Oh,
family moved to, you're right, Houston, Dallas. Everybody kind of went to Texas. Yeah,
yeah.
so moving in general is a big feat. But you guys made that move all the way here to South Africa. What was like your network like? How did you like some of the things you prepared in regards in order to move, and then once you got here, the things that you had to do?
All right, so shout out to YouTube for being a platform in which we were able to kind of document our journey as well as introduce us to so many people because the South African people are wonderful and they are really excited when you embrace their country. Like sometimes they're surprised, like you really want to move here? And it's like, yeah. And
Yeah.
yeah. And they often tell me it's like they get to see the beauty of their country through our eyes because I guess either they're used to it or they're so used to hearing negative things about South Africa. So YouTube allowed us to meet so many people, um, local South Africans as well as African Americans who had been living here prior to 2019 or prior to whenever we moved. So that was one of the ways we kind of built networks. I started doing these things called the meetups, right? So like in 2021, I think we had our first meetup where I was, hey, if you follow the YouTube channel, we're going to be at this black-owned restaurant and laugh loud, talk loud, eat, drink, and be merry. And
I gotta go to one of your meetups.
huh?
I said, which reminds me, I have to go to one of your meetups.
Oh, we got another one coming soon. Unfortunately, we're leaving this month to go back to the U.S. for 2 weeks to go see my parents. So I don't know if we're going to have one in June, but July, definitely, because I got my brother, Dr. Bennett. He's coming over, and I definitely want to do one with him. But we had the first one, I think like 14, 15 people showed up. And that was great. Got to meet a lot of, got to meet South Africans. And I met an older African-American gentleman who had been here since the mid 90s. And he has a 14, 15-year-old son here now. And it's strange because his son has like a South African accent, even though he has this African American dad. So that was that. And then like the next one we had, maybe 40, 50 people showed up. So that's how I started to meet people and interact. YouTube, the meetups. And because of YouTube, I was able to get my visa over here. Now, how did that work? I defended my dissertation in 2021, and a sister named Hasina Ibrahim, who is a professor at WITS, she reached out via email and she said, hey, you should check out this African Center for the Study of the United States. They're always looking for like postdoc researchers or whatever have you. So I reached out because of YouTube. She reached out to me, and I reached out to the center. And like 2 weeks later, the center sent me an invite, and it was that invitation that allowed me to get the research visa. So shout out to YouTube.
YouTube is very powerful. People, I didn't think about that. I know you was one of the people that encouraged me to do my channel. It's like, Jay, just do your channel, as well as some of my friends. But it was just like, I think I wasn't a YouTube watcher like that. I just would get on and play playlists for like 90s music. When you have people over, you're just like, let's get that unlimited. I don't have to search.
Right.
That. But it's a really big community, and it's also a welcoming community. But then there's other parts where you're just like, yeah, I'm just not going to touch the trolls, because you catch those on there too. But I realized that YouTube, people go to YouTube for almost everything. It's just like Google. You want to find out something? Let me Google it. Let me YouTube it. So that was a part of your journey.
Exactly. And another thing about YouTube, just imagine this. You put out a video and it gets 5,000 views, right? Think about that. If you had a church and every week 5,000 people showed up, you would say, hey, I got a successful church. If you had a party, if you threw a party and invited everyone you knew, in the words of Golden Girls theme song, if you threw a party and you had 5,000 people to show up, you would say, damn, this party was off the chain, right? Every time you put out a video, you have 5,000 ears, 5,000 eyes. That's influence. Even though some people put out videos and they get 300,000 views, they got major influence, right? Or they have the ability to speak to people. So that's the way I look at it. It's like I take the opportunity, and I think our goal when Adrian and I put out videos, we always laugh and we always joke. We have a topic, but I think the attraction to our videos is that for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, people feel a relief, right? They get to laugh, they get to joke. People are often commenting like, oh, I'm at work laughing loud, you're going to get me in trouble at work or whatever. Right?
And laughter is good for the soul. So yeah,
it's good for the soul, and it's contagious. So but at the same time, when it's time to so we specifically do these meetups at Black-owned restaurants as a way of putting rands in black hands, right? That became our little motto, rands in black hands. So now we're taking these 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people who watch our videos, and now we're actually translating that into putting money in the hands of Black-owned businesses, right? Um, so using that influence.
Well, explain Black-owned businesses, because people would think, oh, well, you're in South Africa. What do you mean? It's the continent, it's Africa. So explain how.
Oh
yeah.
Well,
Johannesburg is different, or
yeah,
South Africa.
in South Africa is different because of the legacy of apartheid, right? So up until 1994,
Yeah.
this was a segregated nation. Like literally, blacks lived on one side, and then unfortunately, um, the white South Africans controlled most of the wealth. So South Africa is a brand new democracy, less than 30 years old, and they are still in the transitional period of making a more egalitarian society, a more equitable society. So you still see a lot of white wealth, although what attracted me to Johannesburg was I saw a lot of middle class black wealth. I saw black folks driving Range Rovers and all of that type of stuff. But yeah, so
you also have some black wealth here too that is different than what you see in America. So that was me like, oh, this is how black people supposed to live, and I don't gotta feel the pressure on my back. Let me
handle it. Right. Exactly. So yeah. So and also the thing about it, I was doing these meetups in New Orleans at black-owned restaurants, and usually those restaurants are kind of small mom and pop establishments. 40 people, 50 people, you pack the place out, and they're so thankful. Oh, thank you, baby, for doing this. Oh, blah, blah. Here, like Daruma over in Waterfall, this is a black-owned sushi restaurant. They're not really hurting for any business. You see what I'm saying? Like
I love that place.
Oh, you like it? Okay, yeah. They're not hurting for business.
And they have little jazz music. Like, I love it. Yeah, they have a good atmosphere.
Good vibe, right? And it's a classy restaurant. It's not a mom and pop establishment by any means. Whatchamacallit? What's the Italian restaurant? Gemelli's, right? Yeah, that's a black-owned restaurant. And you go to Gemelli's on a Friday night, Club Gemelli's. Yeah.
Gemelli's turn into like, that's the spot be popping. Catch some Gemelli's, that's why I stay away.
Yes.
But the food is good, the vibe is good, the people, like it just get packed out. Next thing you know, you like went from restaurants. Are they doing hookah? Like, what are they doing? You got people coming with bottles. So I was like, okay,
Gemelli's be popping, be popping. So the thing is just like the restaurants here are not as in, at least the kind of mid-level restaurants, they're not really in need of the same type of, like I said, the restaurants in New Orleans, sometimes we would save them from being in the red that month just by bringing 40, 50 people there. Gemelli's don't need anybody to save it. You know what I'm saying? Like Daruma doesn't, these restaurants are well patronized and okay, I'm sorry. But anyway.
So these meetups basically just help you kind of create a network within South Africa with local South Africans as well as African Americans who have moved here to just build that community and network. Right?
Yeah.
So how has that been so far for you, as well as you and your family transition? Because right now, I would say you South African, brother. You've transitioned. So
it's hard for me to claim South Africa. I mean, I love being in South Africa, but you better New Orleans and you'd be like, boy, you from a 7th board, boy, So, but yeah, I am a South African American is what I call myself now. And the network is, listen, I don't know the reputation of South Africa in other people's minds, but these are some of the most welcoming and supportive people that I have ever met. And I mean, I know part of it is when they hear that American accent, they're thinking, oh, wow, he's an American or whatever have you. some people have a slight fascination with the U.S. But other than that, I think it's just real genuine. Like, man, we're happy that you chose our country. We love the fact that you speak positively about our country. They hear so many negative things, and there's such a negative perception about South Africa on purpose in Western media. That
So
they
I
just
hear
have,
that too, but I also hear why? Why, sissy? Why? And then
yeah,
even
yeah,
in the comments, like, are you crazy? And I
because they
just be
haven't
like,
been to the
you don't
U.S.
even understand the gem you have in your own country to
Right,
ask me if I'm crazy or the
right,
experience that I feel. So I don't even answer it. But have you gotten that? Like, why? Or,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
definitely. And that's because they haven't been to the U.S. Those that have been to the U.S. don't ask why, right? Especially those who live there a long time. Like if you go and visit, you like a tourist, and you go to New York and you go to L.A. and everything is all cool. You're like, oh, America is great. But there was a South African soccer player, I believe, or he may have been a rugby player, and maybe about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, he was killed by the police in the U.S. Like I forgot the story. Maybe some white woman thought he was knocking on her door, something crazy, but the police killed him or he got killed. So I think that woke them up to the reality. Like, if you're black in America, your experience is vastly different than what you see on TV, right? And but I mean, there's still this desire by many of them to visit the country because of the wealth. And I tell them, yeah, you can go there, especially when you talk about the dollar to rand exchange. Oh yeah, you can go there and get some money, but is it worth it? Are you know like you're really laying your life on the line at some point, because just like they can't tell that I'm not a South African, that I'm not Zulu or Xhosa. When South Africans get to America, the police will not be able to tell that you are South African. You're just gonna be just another N word in the car that needs to get out with your hands up above your head. You understand?
Yeah, people don't understand that. It's just the freedom that, I mean, I don't have any kids, but, it's just to not worry that your child may get shot on the playground or that
Right.
they coming home from school and the police stop them because someone's saying they're coming through the wrong neighborhood, and it's just
Right.
like, but my child walk this way all the time. They live right here. It's just it's the privilege and the audacity.
Yeah.
So speaking of your children, how was it for them to move here and then like the process of you guys like getting them in the schools?
So at first the children didn't want to come, right? Who wants to leave their friends on the playground to come to a new place, right? My oldest son was more resistant than the baby. Uh, but now that they've been here and they've transitioned and they've made some adjustments, met friends. My oldest son is playing on the soccer team. He went from being all he wanted to do was play American football to now he wants to play soccer or whatever have you. So the process of getting them in school, I mean, we just kind of looked. So initially, they were at the French school. There's a French school here called Lycée Jules Verne.
I think
And
I
the
heard of
reason
it. Is it down here in like Morningside?
Morningside, yep, it's in Morningside.
Yeah.
And the reason why they were at the French school was because they were at a French school in New Orleans, right? So we thought it would be an easy transition. But once they got here, you know, I think the French here was a little bit more advanced than what they had been taking, because a lot of the students here are like legitimate francophones, right? Their
Mm-hmm.
parents are coming from France or from a French-speaking country, so they're speaking French at home. They're speaking French at school. It is like it's not a second language. It's the first language to them. In New Orleans, they were at a French school. They taught, they taught in French in the classroom, but on the playground, everybody's speaking English. So, which means they were not fully immersed in the French language. So they were not doing well. I would say they were doing bad, but it was really tough on my oldest son because he was trying to catch up, and he would be in school from like 7 in the morning to 5 at night, like with extra classes and stuff. So we ended up sending him to another school, which was really a great experience. Has been a great experience. It's an English speaking school. I mean, they were able to jump right in, catch up, and we were able to look back and say, "Oh, he was struggling because of that language, not necessarily because he didn't
Mm-hmm.
understand." But the process of getting them in school is relatively easy. You apply, you find a school that you like, and we Google searched top schools in Johannesburg, and then we would ask people, rely on your network. Hey, what do you know about this school? Oh, this school is good. Oh, St. John's is this, or Crawford is this, blah 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 blah. And on a few of our trips, we would visit schools to see, okay, see the campus, see if we like it or whatever have you. And yeah, you apply to the school, uh, and once you're accepted, then at that point you're able to get your student visa. So you can apply for the student visa. So that's the kids are here on student visas. My wife and I are here. I'm on a research visa. My wife is on a company person's visa. So yeah, yeah, it's
So what would you say, I guess, the different perspective, I guess you've been here for a year, right? Or
yep.
almost a year? Yeah, different perspective with the education system here versus back home.
I would say teachers are still respected as a serious profession here. Um, the school has a school song that they sing every morning. It's it's like almost going back in time. My mom was a teacher. She taught 40 years. So I have a certain affinity and a respect and a soft spot in my heart for education, for educators. And seeing like the way and I don't know about all the schools, right? So I'm just talking about the school that my sons attend. It's like almost going back in time where um, children had a lot of respect for teachers. They are very interested in learning. When my son visited the class for the first time at the school, every all the children stood up when he walked into class and welcomed him. I mean, you know, that's uh, that's a pleasure to see. I tell you what. Here's how I can tell the story to kind of define the experience. My son came home one day and asked my wife, which is a better school, Oxford or Harvard? Because the kids on the playground were having that debate. Now, I'm HBCU all the way. I'm about them HBCUs. But it's still important that they were having a discussion about which is better, Oxford or Harvard. I might have said Howard or Hampton, but they, you see what I'm saying? So that's where their minds are now. Not who's the number one footballer, not who's the biggest rapper. And I'm sure they may have those conversations, but the conversation that stuck out with him that day was which is a better school, Oxford or Harvard. And that kind of tells you what the environment is like in the school.
Okay. So that, and what about the basis of the education system? Um, is it a public school? Is it a private school?
It's private school. Yeah, they go
Okay.
to private school.
Okay.
Um, and the curriculum
Because, well, explain why. Because here, public school, if they reach a certain number of kids, I heard that now you have to start looking at other schools. Because here everyone even talking about little kids, they're like, "Oh, school fees," and me, and I'm like,
yeah,
you know,
school
you
free.
it's a slot for you in school. What school fees? So
Yeah,
everybody talks about school fees. What's the difference from home and here? When now, as your little kids, you talking about school fees, whether it's public or private.
yeah. So our kids were in the private school in New Orleans for a minute, and then they opened up a public French school, charter school. So they started off there, and they were there for a couple of years before we came over here. So we've always kind of been a private school family. Um, because of the challenges of the public school system in New Orleans. Just period, right? It's the second poorest state in the union. So public schools are not well funded. The curriculum, most of the time, are outdated. They don't always have certified teachers. In fact, in Orleans Parish, the majority of teachers are not certified. They are Teach for America. So they went to school to be, whatever. They couldn't get into. I'm not saying that's the case all the time, but a lot of them couldn't get jobs in their field. And they said, okay, I get to teach for 2 years or 3 years. So we were trying to avoid that, right? For our children. Again, my mom taught 40 years. She went to school, majored in education. She has a pedagogy. It's so I look at teaching from a total, and not only was my mom a teacher, like four of my aunts were teachers. So education was something that was very important in our household. So we never considered. I said all to say that we never considered public school in South Africa. Maybe it was the influence of people that we spoke with who were saying, "No, you gotta, this is the best school." Blah 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 blah. So I don't know what the public school system is like here. Private school is, and in our mind, is affordable, right? I think to maybe a lot of South Africans, because of again, we have the dollar to the rand, right? Conversion. So what's affordable to us may be extremely expensive to uh, everyday South Africans. However, at my son's school, there's a whole bunch of black folk and black kids at the school. I made a video the other day about the black mamas coming to pick their babies up in the Range Rovers and the BMWs. So in fact, one of the there's a Netflix series out, and one of the ladies' children that's on that Netflix series goes to my son's school. So, I thought that was cool.
What Netflix series? Now I want to know.
young, famous in African, the young, rich in African. I always get the name wrong.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, my uncle watches that. I said, listen, it's a show.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Yeah.
I think what the show does, it shows Africa in a totally different light. These people are, going to have lunch and tea during the polo game. I'm like, y'all going too far. Y'all know damn well y'all ain't going.
But you know what? It's breaking some of the myths that people have on Africa. And speaking of that, what I guess being here, I'm in South Africa. See, to me, it feels like Johannesburg is kind of like a New York to me. Like it's just like the only difference is you can use a little bit more 24-hour open spots. That's the only that's the only difference. So what would you say to break some of the myths of people perceptions or perspective of Africa and South Africa?
Oh man, listen. South Africa, you said New York, South Africa. Well, Johannesburg reminds me of Houston. It reminds me of Atlanta, maybe a little New York or whatever have you. But the idea, the perception that we are in some sort of jungle or savannah surrounded by animals. The beautiful thing about South Africa is that if you want to see some animals, you can actually go see some animals. Like if you want to go to safari, you can, and that's beautiful to have. You don't have to fly. When we get on those planes coming from the US, those planes are filled with our white brothers and sisters, white Americans who are coming to see safari, to go on a safari or whatever have you, right? Right here, living here, I can go any weekend I choose, right? So, but some of the myths are that, that it's backward, that it's no infrastructure, there's no running water. I had my frat brother asked me in 2000. This wasn't about South Africa. I was born in Tanzania in 2009, and he asked me. He said, "Man, where you going to use the bathroom?" And hey, like they didn't have toilets. And this is a brother who's educated, you know. But that
See,
media,
that just like mind blowing to me.
well, I mean, the media propaganda against Africa in general is so strong, and it has been such long standing. Um, you know, like, and the media propaganda against South Africa is so
Well,
strong.
I
But
think
what,
we experienced that being here. So, like
yeah,
during COVID, I was like, how they gonna blame South Africa for this strand when
right,
South Africa is the one that caught it at the airport from someone who came from Europe? And it was just
right,
like, oh, so now it's the South African strand. I said, you know what? If I
yeah,
wasn't, and my uncle and them on the other side is like, oh, well, we heard, and I was like, yeah, that's not true.
right.
Like
It
that
just,
literally can upset a whole economy.
oh, exactly. And so
It
let me ask
did.
you, we are starting. So I started a book club, and on July 15th we are having our first meeting. The name and the first book that we read is called "The Americans Are Coming" by Dr. Vincent, I believe his name, Vinson. Robert Trent Vincent. Um, and the book is called The Americans Are Coming, African American Liberation in South Africa. And it's discussing from 1850 to about 1910. So we're not talking about like recent, that's how long Black Americans and Black South Africans have been in it. It's 1850 to 1910. But what's important about that in the introduction, he kind of discusses a few things, but um, understanding what South Africa was supposed to be or how it was designed. It was designed to be the white man's or the Europeans' jewel on the continent of Africa, right? And to have the one man, one vote democracy place this well-established, well-built, industrialized nation in the hands of black people is number one. It was an affront to white supremacy. But I was watching an interview with Steve Biko from the 70s, right? And this very serious interviewer, very serious journalist in the 70s asked Steve Biko if the black man was ready to govern. Was he civilized enough to govern? You see, this is the propaganda against all African people, and then specifically the reason why the vitriol against South Africa is so strong, because for the last 30 years, South Africa has been a first class nation that is disproving the idea that black people are not civilized enough to run nations, right? And the great thing about the book, The Americans Are Coming, is that it talks about how African Americans, even through our slavery, through enslavement, 1850, we were still enslaved. But around 1910, with post Reconstruction, start the turn of the Industrial Revolution, black folk were popular. Like black Americans, I should say, African Americans were being held up by other Africans throughout the continent, as well as throughout the diaspora, as an example of proof that the black man could accomplish, proof that the black man could be civilized, right? It's a very interesting book, and I think we're going to
I
get into
gotta pick
all
up
of
that
it.
book.
Huh?
I said, no, I gotta pick up that book. You know how I am on history and stuff like that. I gotta pick that up.
It just shows that for a very long time there has been this relationship. Think about that. 1850 white slave owners were bringing enslaved African Americans to South Africa because this was the other white bastion where white people controlled, and they had very vicious and oppressive laws against black people. At one point, after the end of slavery, African Americans were actually viewed as white people in South Africa, given the privileges of whites because we had the American citizenship, right?
Mm.
So what happened was that, and this is why we got to read this book because it's very powerful. They started to say, wait a minute, these African Americans are coming over here giving our natives the ideas of freedom, of democracy, of equality. And then the South African government ultimately banned the entry of African Americans into South
I didn't know that. It's
Africa.
quite interesting. And look, here we
Yep.
are telling
And
everybody, come on over. Come
right.
on over.
But we have been signaling to our South that that's why some things, whether you read them in history books, some things are just in your DNA. We have been signaling to South Africa for a long time. So then the book also talks about the rise of Marcus Garvey or whatever had. But
Oh, that's my man right there. Anything to do with
well,
Marcus Garvey.
there you go. Well, he
Yeah,
had a very huge impact on the continent of Africa.
he
I
did.
mean,
He did.
the
He
reason
did.
why they have the red, black, and green in the South African flag is because of Marcus Garvey, right? But uh, Gil Scott Heron in the 70s, to paint the picture, this is Saturday Night Live, hosted by Richard Pryor, who is literally the biggest comedian on planet Earth at the time. And the musical guest is Gil Scott Heron. And the first song he sings is "What's the Word, Johannesburg? What's the Word?" And this is the 70s. The lyrics of the songs like "I hear my brothers are over there fighting the man," something about them trying to take their land or whatever have you. So basically, it was through Gil Scott, Black Americans saying we stand in solidarity with our South African brothers and sisters. There's a song that came out 30 years, a local New Orleans song, brass band music, right? We have that old little jazz music that we created. Um, and it's by the Soul Rebels. And the Soul Rebels have worked with everyone from like Sting to, like KRS-One. These are but they're a brass band. The RZA, they worked with the RZA also. But this song came out 30 years ago, and it's called "Let Your Mind Be Free," right? Free your mind, let your mind be free. And the very first place that the song shouts out is South Africa. These little New Orleans brass band, you know what I'm saying? Like shouting out South Africa. It's something that's written in our DNA to
It
connect.
is. And
Yeah,
I feel like once our feet touch the ground, we just feel it. We
right,
we we feel the energy. We feel it's like it hits our soul, our spirit, and it's just like even when you come to visit, you're like, I gotta go back. Like
exactly.
it's something. It's just like I have to go back. I have to. Whatever that is, I want more of it. So then you
Exactly.
start working to save to go back, and everybody's like, "Oh, you keep going to South Africa. Why you keep going here? Cause the same
It's the
reason you
truth.
keep going to the Caribbean, I guess. Like in different places, you feel different things.
Right.
I also
And
feel that, like, for some reason, I do like a lot when I visit the Caribbean, but even just a lot of Spanish countries, I feel something too. Just when I hit there, I just like just to travel and experience different cultures.
yeah,
It just does something to me. But here is when I felt like, oh, it spoke to my spirit. And I think a lot of us we feel that, and I think that's how we connect amongst one another.
right. So I think that's another reason why South Africa is so attractive to African Americans. Besides the infrastructure and all of that good stuff, it's the
That too.
language. Everybody speaks English here, even though they may speak. I've met brothers who speak 6 different languages. 7, they speak Xhosa, they speak Zulu, they speak was it
It put us
Swana?
to shame because I'm like, dang,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
language do I know?
All I know is English. That's it, baby. But that's
A
easy.
little
So
Creole, we made up our own language, little pig
right,
Latin, whatever,
yeah, little African American national English.
gibberish.
Yeah, but coming here, you don't have that language barrier, so you could talk
Yeah,
to
that's
people.
true.
You know, and Dar most people were speaking Swahili, and Swahili has a lot of influence from the Arabic language. I don't know a lot of Arabic, but I know enough to like lightweight hold a conversation. So I could start off a conversation with some of the brothers there, but it always had to veer back to English. Here, I can hold in-depth conversations about history, about politics, about science, or whatever, because everyone speaks English. So, and that allows you to create stronger bonds with people, you know.
Yeah, and that also made me wish that I studied Spanish in college and in high school, but it was like, dang, if I'd studied just a little French, because around the continent, French is big, and I was just, but then I
Right.
didn't think about it because when you're there, it's like if you study Spanish, like, and you bilingual, better options for jobs.
Right. Spanish is a strong language in the West. It is probably the language that will be the most influential in the country, especially in the American South and the American West. Right? From shoot, it used to be from Texas West, but now it's really from Louisiana West because post Hurricane Katrina, I grew up in a city that was black and white. It was 70% black and 30% white, and we didn't know anything else. We had maybe one or two Hispanic, but you kind of and they usually just fell in the category with us. Y'all come on over here, you know. But post Katrina,
Did you
post
say y'all over here?
y'all over here.
Sorry.
I can't even tell y'all all over here.
Oh my God. Go ahead.
So post Katrina, we had an influx of our Hispanic brothers and sisters to come help us rebuild, like to actually help us build homes. And this could kind of segue us into another conversation. I watched how that immigrant group came into the city of New Orleans and established themselves in a way. The first thing that they did was they opened up a grocery store. It started off small. Now they have 3 or 4 locations called IDL or Ideal. It's spelled Ideal, but they say IDL. Grocery markets where they had Latin American food from all over Latin America. The spices that they may use in Honduras versus the spices that they may use in Mexico or Guatemala or whatever have you. But they got together and opened a grocery store so that they could have access to some of the food or some of the things that they used to at home. They had systems for remitting money back home. So they would come into the U.S., they're staying, but they had a way of sending money back home, which is an informal banking system or whatever have you. Now they have their own school, Esperanza, right?
What's that?
They have, huh?
What's the Esperanza?
I don't know, but that's the name of the school, Esperanza. Uh,
Oh.
yeah, that's the name of the school.
I
Yeah,
didn't understand that. Sorry.
oh yeah. So what I'm saying is they came in and established a community, right? And I think that's what, if I have one criticism of the African Americans living in South Africa, is that I have not seen that level of immigrant organization that I saw in our Hispanic. And it's probably because we've never been immigrants, right? Like we've never been immigrants. We were enslaved people, citizens of the U.S., and now this is our first time probably in history where large numbers of black people are leaving the United States. And when I say large numbers, it's not really that large. We're talking about maybe 30, 40,000 people at the most. You know what I'm saying? But and that's throughout the entire world that these Africans are moving, these African Americans are moving. But here in South Africa, with African Americans having such a long history here, I would expect to come and see something established. Like, oh, there's a soul food restaurant that I can go to. We don't have that. There's a African American like Chamber of
Grocery
Commerce.
store.
We don't have neither one. So I think we really have to learn what it's like to be an immigrant and how things are set. Not that we have to have things separately from our our South African brothers and sisters. That's definitely not what I'm saying. But we need to have a certain commonality that we have as African Americans, whether we come from DC or the South or New York or whatever have you. There are still these cultural ties and it would be
Instead
great
of
to see.
the little WhatsApp group.
Yeah, yeah. And that's a start. But the WhatsApp group is a start, but that
But
can't
that
be the
group
end of
been in existence long before us, and they done nothing.
it. Yeah,
I mean, it is some, information here and there, which is fine. But I just feel like the camaraderie or a community could be a lot better, a lot more powerful, especially in transitioning.
right.
Once you're here, and I just feel like all of us are doing it ourselves again. And when you ask, it's just like topical, unless you hit a group out, hit a person outside like me and you, or we talk to
Yeah,
maybe Keena or someone. Then you just but it shouldn't be like that. But I think when you and I spoke, I think you have a good idea. I think we should do a big old cookout when it
yeah,
gets hot outside, and because that's one of our things, and invite our South African brothers and sisters. You welcome to what you call a bride, and we
right,
we we, we just do a whole new thing. Now
right.
keep your nasty aunts and uncles at home because that happens in the cookouts too.
Yeah, yeah,
That
that's
is
what
that is your niece. That ain't your niece's friend.
oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, what's that Tyler Perry movie when he was asking that girl, get down there and get that cold drink. I had been, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. It was a family with Tyler
I
Perry.
think so. When they had that big old cookout and they did the shirt,
Yeah,
everybody is.
yeah, yeah. So, but that's what we need, and we so finally, I was so we're doing this research at the center to kind of document the African Americans here, document their experience or whatever have you. And I've been looking and searching for the longest on like an accurate number of African Americans living here. So finally, the other day, I ran across an article that is still about 10 years old, but it was the first time that I read a number, an estimate.
And what did they say?
3,000 African Americans living in South Africa. 3,000. Now, some
And
of those,
Americans in general is more than that too.
say that again?
I said Americans, including all races, more than that.
It's about 7,000. So that's easy to find. Like the number of Americans living in South Africa is about
Yeah,
maybe about 7,500. And the reason why that number is easy to find is because both the South African government and the American government don't classify us by race when you enter or leave the country. It is based your citizenship. So it's
yeah.
Americans entering, not Black Americans or whatever have you. So, but with 3,000 folk here, right, taking that estimate, that is such a sizable number. If everybody, paid dues to an organization that $10 a month or something, that would be enough operating cost to have all kind of stuff. Somebody new is coming. They could have a welcoming committee. I'm talking about Red and Stacy. Say Red and Stacy are moving to South Africa. Welcoming committee. As soon as they get here, we could tell them the schools. We could have a complete orientation. These are the schools you need to go to. These are areas you need to live.
That would be
Or
dope.
right, right,
That
and
would
we
be
should
so
have that.
dope. That is like, I just helping people because I just saw on their channel, like in regards to the visa process, even helping people in that area. Like,
Right,
and knowing the different visas that you can have.
exactly.
Like Kim shocked me when she was like, "Oh, I'm here on an artist one," and I was just like, most people don't even know about that. So then I researched. A lot of people can do that, but I think now they're
Right.
about to start that remote working one,
Yeah,
which would I think help bring in or help people that are here, but even just bring in more people remote work so that they can help feed into the economy.
exactly. Think about it. I mean, some of the numbers I'm looking at the preliminary data from the survey. Uh, most African Americans are spending between um, $4,000 and $8,000 a month. Think about that. That's a lot. And when you talk about rent, and you think about all the food we going out to eat, we shopping, we buying homes, or we paying rent, we buying cars. we are investing into the economy of South Africa.
And then
And
just even on some of the necessities that maybe an average South African may not do, we do. We feel like I can't do that without having this and this and this and this in my house, or for that month, like this is a necessity to me. So we automatically
pay for it.
throwing them dollars.
Right. And then I'm talking about house help, like shoot, I got a house lady that come and clean up. We have one back in the States, but I think it's different because our Hispanic brothers and sisters took over that industry, right? The house cleaning industry, and they turned it into a business. So I think that's one of the things that I notice is that it's like so just from my story, the Hispanic lady that used to clean my house, she started off, she was referred by my sister. My sister said, "Oh, you should get her. She cleans the house pretty well, or whatever have you." So she would come in, and it'd be her and another lady there clean up. That lasted for a couple of months, 2 or 3 months. Next thing you know, when the crew would come in, I didn't even see the original lady anymore because she was the owner. So now she had people working for her, and they would come in 2, 3 hours, they out, they on to the next house, right? And what she was doing was, number one, she turned it into a legitimate business to where she didn't have to work. She had employees, right? They were not my house help. They were a service that I paid for, which is a different mentality. You see what I'm saying? Like the lady that comes over here to clean up, she's the house help, or she's a domestic, or whatever have you. She's not a business. I pay her to clean up. Quite different than I'm paying this lady for a service. She's coming in. She's not even coming in. She's sending in her crew. They come in, they clean up. She was able to grow her business quite rapid. And what she was able to do was hire new Hispanic immigrants who were coming in to New Orleans who needed a job. Right? She was able, whether it was getting paid under the table or above board, she was able, because some of the people that was coming couldn't even speak English, right? They didn't speak English at all. But they was coming in, cleaning up the house, and they was getting paid. So I think that's one of the things that I see that's different over here is that the domestic workers here are still like house help as opposed to
A service that you pay
a service,
for a
right? A
company.
service, a business, right? Same with, I've seen a few lawn care people here, but for the most people have a gardener. Do you know how much they pay gardeners in the United States? Like it is a crazy how much it costs to get someone to come out and
I
deep
know.
the garden and put in sand or dirt and plant flower. That's easily $8, $9, $10,000,
Unless you
right?
get one of, I've seen that too, where you got the people in your neighborhood and you're like, oh, right, Wednesday, come cut my grass.
Right. No, cutting grass is one thing. Like I used to own a lawn care business, so cutting grass, that's the basic. I'm coming out, zoom, 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 zoom. And even with that, you were making we was the lowest we would charge is $35 a yard, right? On up to, depending on the size of the yard, $50, $60 a yard. You could do 10, 15 yards in a day, right? Um, but I'm talking about like gardeners. I see people who are legit planting flowers. They're removing
I've
weeds.
seen that too. Like where
Yeah,
I go and refill my water, this lady, she has a truck and I think they all meet her there. And then they all get in the truck and she rides around and I think she drops them off at different locations. Every
uh,
morning she does that because there's not a time that I missed her, but I don't go every morning to refill my water. So it's just like she does that every
yeah,
morning. They go into that spa, they get I guess a little food and stuff, and then they all get in that truck.
yeah.
So I was just like, that's interesting. And on the side of it, I read it was like basically her gardening business. So I
And
was
that's
like,
what they need. That's what they need more of. And now, unfortunately for us, like, and for the middle class South Africans or the well-to-do South Africans, that means that the price will go up, right? And like Once you start businesses like that, you're gonna see the prices of these services go up. But it raises the standards of those individuals who are actually doing the work. Now they're able to afford this. They become business owners. They're able to afford to send their kids to the better schools, and now they afford to buy a house or a nicer house, whatever have you. So that's the, you know, we can critique free market capitalism or whatever have you, and I have my critiques of it. But that's one of the benefits. It does help, when done properly, to bring people from an impoverished state to a state of ownership. And Sister Dr. Jamie Green taught me one thing. She said, in a capitalist society, equity is not about, access to the good school, or equity is not about your feelings and being heard. Equity is about ownership. And I was like, well, that's real. Yeah, that's real.
100%. You have to start thinking that way and start preparing, because for us it's like, it feels like and I know I don't want to get too much off topic, but it feels like Africans and African Americans in some way we're kind of starting over. Not starting over, starting new. And why? When our ancestors have already started it for us. It's not in our hands, because let's just go into some trickery and land that happened all over the world. Even us, our history of our ancestors being slaves, we built America.
Right.
The wealth is not with us.
Right.
So you got to look at some things like that. But to get back on topic, what are some of the things that you prepared for in order to move? Like, you had to sell your house, you knew what you wanted to pack, some of the stuff you had to ship over, because now it's a family of four. It's not just you. You can't just let me get 5 suitcases and put it on the plane.
That's exactly what I did, though. I didn't ship nothing over. Listen, it was Cortez who said, burn the boats, we gonna either conquer or die. That's how I felt. I didn't ship no furniture. I sold everything I had. So let me tell you, the key, coming from the old West with this old American mindset, is, first of all, stack you some money. My advice is to stack up some money. And what number, I don't know how to tell you. For us, we try to stack up as much as we could. Then we sold the house. That gave us a little bump. Most of our furniture and stuff we gave away. But in terms of preparing to leave, the biggest thing, because what I didn't want to do, what I am not going to do, is to be in a foreign country or in another country struggling, right? Worried about money. I could stay in America and worry about money. I could stay in America and struggle. So my advice to people who are looking to leave is, get you a healthy savings. If it takes you 2 years or 3 years, if you're focused, get you a healthy savings, so that even if you're a remote worker, like I'm a remote worker technically, even if you're a remote worker, you still have income coming in monthly or whatever have you, you still want to have that cushion in case something goes wrong, right? Or in case you have to, for me, I think about, again, my parents are in their 80s. If something happens and I need to get on a plane tomorrow, I need to have that cushion to be able to go home. So the biggest thing I would say is stack you some money. Don't necessarily be in such a rush to get out there. You go out there head first, and you don't have the proper finances to support yourself, right? To support yourself in case of emergency or whatever have you. But no, we didn't take anything but like 9 suitcases, maybe 8 or 9 suitcases, full of clothes, and we got everything that we needed here.
You guys did pretty good, because I know people who just them. They ship stuff over. I just came with suitcases, but for a family of 4, 9 suitcases. You sold a lot. You sold a lot.
Man, I gave away all kind of stuff: suits, sofas, all kind of stuff. I mean, just gave it away. We were our mindset.
I did that too, actually. I gave a lot of stuff away, so I do understand. Because then now you start to think like, I don't really need this.
No, you don't. You just be hoarding all kind of stuff. Like, man, why I got, you know, 7 pairs of these shoes or whatever, it's just like I don't need all that. Anything I need, I can get there. And that's the beauty of coming to like South Africa and Joburg, or Cape Town, wherever, is that you have access to all of the stuff all of the home goods stores, all of the, clothing out, all the stuff you need, you can get there. So you can get here. So I was like, we don't need to take all of this stuff over. Let's
And that's what
start
people
it.
don't understand is it's not that much of a difference in that regard. You can
No.
get some of that stuff here,
Oh,
a
no.
lot of that stuff here.
Yeah.
So that's what that's the misconception.
And you can get it cheaper in comparison to what you get it for in the US. Now, if you already purchased it and already had it, that's one thing. But I mean, like, nah, we got all our furniture, all the stuff that we needed here. Now, what we did do when we first moved here, we stayed in a place that was already furnished,
I
right?
did too.
Yeah, that was already furnished, and it gave us time. And while we were there, okay, we'll pick up this, we'll get this, blah blah
So
blah blah.
I would say that's easy because all my places have been furnished.
Mm, okay, yeah, yeah, but sometimes, so once we moved in here, we had the stuff that we needed, you know, already. So that's one easy way of doing it, to land at you're gonna pay a little more per month, but you land at a place that already has a bed, it already has all the stuff you need. And then as you decide, I'm gonna tell you another thing that we did. We started buying property while we were already in the States. So in 2020, okay, I'm not gonna go on a tangent, but my brother,
Please.
huh? You said?
I said please.
Yeah, I ain't gonna go on a tangent. You know how I go, but I have a brother during Hurricane Katrina. He told me, he was like, "We got to profit from this disaster, brother." And he was reading some book. We were roommates at the time. He was reading some book called something about the Devil's Island or something. I don't forgot the name of it, but it was all about profiting from disaster. And so that was 2005. So in 2020, when COVID happened, I'm paying attention to the real estate prices, both in the US and in South Africa. And because of COVID, people were unloading properties left and right. So it was really a buyer's market here. So we started purchasing. We purchased our first 2 properties during 2020 when COVID struck, and we got them at really great deals. So that was part of our, like, plan. Like, we get there, we'll also have this kind of rental income coming in. And I'm telling
Which
you,
is
for
really
African
good. That's one of the streams of income. So if you would tell people that are moving, um, would you say that renting your property is one of the best incomes that you can have coming in being abroad?
Man, listen, you can't go wrong with real estate. It's in the title. It's the real estate. It's what you really leave to your family. That's what estate is about, right? Leaving something to your family. So you can't go wrong with it. I mean, you can buy the wrong property and it could be trouble. It could be a headache. You could pay too much for it and it's not worth that. That can go wrong. But buying the right property and renting it out. Here's the thing: Maslow's hierarchy of needs. After security, shelter is is right there. It's number 2. Like, people are always going to need a place to stay, right? And if you are into rental property, by you as African Americans, you can get a flat, a small apartment over here, right? Starting, probably you can get them cheaper, but the kind of ones you want, maybe 35, $40,000. And you can rent that out for maybe in American dollars about $500 or $600 a month. And you say, well, that's not a lot of money when people are getting $1,000 a month in the US. But you can get multiple of those properties to help supplement your income, depending on how you want to live, right? And depending on your lifestyle and how much money you think you're going to spend a month. But at the end of the day, with the properties, if something does go wrong, and I'm all of my money is gone, all of my savings is gone, I can start selling properties and get some cash. I can make them liquid.
But then you also know you got a place to stay.
I got a place to stay, no matter what. Whether I want to live in that one bedroom, you know what I'm saying? I got a place to stay. I ain't gonna never be
Would you
home.
want to live in that one bedroom? Hey, not with a
No,
family, but you'll make it work until things work out. So
exactly.
I would say, as we're wrapping up, what would you want to leave people with? Oh, let me give you a little break.
Oh no, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. What I would say um, to anybody, black, white, or whatever have you, looking to leave the U.S., know that there's going to be some challenges. The U.S. does not make it easy for you to just divest. However, like there's a great big world outside of your hometown, whether you're from New Orleans, D.C., New York, uh, LA. It's still a great big world out there. And you may be able to find yourself in some of the most beautiful and exotic places ever, and the opportunities to improve your life. This is not just about black folks coming and escaping the racism of white America. Some folks just need to be in a different place, in a different space, and to be able to be seen. I made a post on Facebook the other day that says, we always tell people that your gift will make room for you, but sometimes your gift is too big for the room, right? And that's what I felt about my hometown. It's like, you know, I love my city. I love everything that it's taught me, everything it has given me. However, I think at some point I outgrew my city, right? Experienced so much of the world or whatever have you. I come to Johannesburg, working at one of the top universities in the world, literally. Um, Meeting people that I would never have the opportunity to meet in the United States. I helped a mayor get elected, and barely could get a meet with the mayor. You know what I'm saying? Like in New Orleans. So it's like here I've met the mayor or the former mayor of Joburg. They switching mayors left and right, Joburg, but I met the former mayor, Mayor Joburg. I met him when he was actually the mayor. I met so many different people and putting myself in different situations that I would say to anybody, man, take that chance. Do it right. Plan, organize, know where you want to go, visit the place, see if you're able to really feel comfortable there. But take an opportunity and see the world. And even if you do it for 2 years, 3 years, that's a life changing experience. When you come back, you're like, hey, I've experienced something different. I know that there are different ways that things operate, different perspectives on the world, and it's just an invaluable experience that you can never that you never have to get back. My children, if we had to go back to the U.S., you know, tomorrow, my children have lived in another country for a year, right? They've experienced another culture. They've lived on the continent of Africa. That's something that they will take with them for the rest of their lives, and that's just a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Brother Saad, for your wisdom, as well as just giving your organic experience of moving here with your family, and just last words to people that think they can't do it. What would you tell
Oh,
them?
everybody think they can't do it. They can't do it. If they think they can't do it,
No,
they
I
can't.
mean, some people are just afraid, but
Yeah, that's the
look at us.
problem.
We did it, so you can too. It's
Right.
not that
So
hard, but
you can't think I can't do it and then expect to be able to do it. You have to think I can do it. It may be hard, but I can figure it out. I can do whatever you set your mind to. So yeah, if they think they can't do it, the first thing that they need to do is think that they can. And
all
by
right,
looking
change
at
the
people like
mindset shift.
right, the mindset shift. By looking at people like myself, looking at people like you and Red and Stacy and Red Grade Eight and all of these people, Doc Nicky. I don't know if you've met Doc Nicky yet or heard of
No,
her.
I haven't.
Okay, so she just came last week. She and her wife just moved from Texas. Um, but for all of these people, like they're just regular people. Like specifically when you look at us, nothing special about us. I'm not a football player. I don't know some sports team or anything like that. We're just regular people.
None of these people, you own a sports team.
But
You try to throw that in there knowing you own a sports team, brother. No, I'm just playing, guys. He don't. But no,
no,
I get it. It's nothing special about us. We just changed our mind, and we can. Let us know how we can hook up with you. Drop your channel, all of that good stuff with you and your wife.
yeah, it's Asad, ASAD, LEL, Malik, MALIK. I think it's PhD at on YouTube. But really, if you look up Asad El Malik, you'll see some of our videos coming up. So follow us there, like, comment, subscribe. Follow Jay's channel, like, comment, and subscribe. And that's another thing. I gotta say this. Some folk be like acting like YouTube is TV. It's not TV. Like, back in the days, if something came on at 7 o'clock on channel 6 and something came on at 7 o'clock on channel 8 and you wanted to watch both of them, you had to make a decision, right? YouTube is not like that. So I don't know why people kind of guard, they're like, look, everybody, because you can watch the video's going to be there. So people can watch the video whenever they get an opportunity.
Whenever they want.
Whenever they want. So some people are kind of guarded with like, telling people to go check out this channel. I don't care nothing about that. Go check out Jay's channel. Check out Changing the Narrative with Red and
Yes.
Stacey.
I was about to say shout out to all of them that you dropped earlier. Red's channel, Red's Grade 8, Changing the Narrative, Stacey and Red. I know all these Reds, but those are two different Reds.
Two different Reds. Yeah.
But yeah, go check out Dr. Asad's channel. He also I think I did an interview on your channel as well. So check that out. Let us know. That was my first live. And this is also like my first interview. So hopefully we can get more into things like that, because it's not a lot that I know, and I know there's things that I don't know that other people do know, and so we share the knowledge, and I also want to share the knowledge with you guys. So if you have been here this long, you must really liked it. I know we went on some little tangents, but we are here, and hopefully Dr. Asad dropped some nuggets for you. If you have more questions about moving with a family, with kids, or just you and your wife, or you alone, hit us up. We'll let you know what the real deal is. No sugarcoating. We ain't gatekeeping. We letting it all out.
Bang, bang, bang. Just like that. Just like that. All right, sisters.
All right, guys. Peace. Until next time.